Hello, everyone. Hello. Thank you so much for joining us on a Saturday. This is Akshay from Team Eduonix, and I welcome you all for our Game Development E-Degree live session. So, how are you all doing? And I hope you guys are all safe. That's great. So, first things first, guys. So, if you guys can hear me clearly, just put a yes on the chat section so that we know the session is going to be audible to all of you. But that's great. We have a lot of yeses over here. That's amazing. So I can see we already have around 100 participants. So I say let's wait just for 30 seconds or a minute before we begin the session. And in the meantime, why don't you guys just put up your expectations from today's session? Like, it's about game development. So why are you guys here for? So yeah, so why are you guys here for? Is it like for games, so you like playing games, or now you like playing games, that's why you want to develop new games, or you want to have a nice career in the game development area? So okay, so someone says so people want to learn the programming language, someone wants to know the roadmap from scratch. That's amazing, that's exactly why we are here for. Basics for developments and career is what I say is people like games. Yeah, everyone likes games, so that's great. So yeah, I like games, I want to have a career, I'm crazy about games, future, about the industry. That's perfect, guys. So that's exactly what we are here for, and you've landed on this correct place. So what we at Eduonix have is, like, we have industry experts with us who are going to teach you all these things, who are going to let you know what it is. So yeah, so we've landed in the same place. Nice. It's good to know that. And so I wanted to know your expectations, because we can cover all of these things during the session. And if we do not cover, so chat section is going to be open to you all. And what we're going to do is we're going to keep the chat section open so that you ask your questions. If they're not answered during the session, we're going to answer them during the Q&A session at the end. And don't worry about that. And also, let's just make sure that all the questions are asked about Eduonix and the game development degree. All right, so before we begin, I also have an announcement for you guys that, as usual, we also have an offer for you all, but you're gonna have to stick around, and we're gonna talk about that offer during the session and after the session. So that's really cool, and I'm sure you guys are gonna love the offer that we have today for you all. And so to begin with the session, I'll just first introduce our co-host today, Mr. Raman Rami. He's joined us from Egypt today, and he also is very much interested in games and gaming, and he also has more than 10 years of experience in designing and developing games. So I'm sure that you guys are going to have a very interactive and very insightful session today. So do we have Raman on already? So are we ready, Raman?
Hello, yes, we are absolutely ready. How are you all doing? I hope you're all
All
doing
right,
great
guys.
today, Alfred.
So we have Raman with us. So yes, so great. So we have responses. All right, Raman. So if we are ready to go, let us dive into the session of game development. I'm gonna give the stage to you now, Raman. The stage is all yours.
All right, absolutely. It's nice to have you guys here. Wow, there's so many people. And I'm noticing a lot of interest there's a lot of people here who are starting in the field. There are people who've had some prior experience, which is really nice. Some of you are looking for the exposure or for knowing more about the industry. This is all good. I want you guys to know that if this is your goal, then you've come to the right webinar, and I think you're really going to enjoy what we have to share with you today. With that being said, now a lot of you are looking to start a new career into game development. Maybe you've had a little bit of experience, but you want to establish a strong career in the field. Now, that could be many things. You could be looking to work independently as an indie developer, or you could be looking to possibly get hired in a startup, or maybe in a larger, maybe even a triple A studio. And in order to do that, in order to establish a strong career, I think it's very important that you ask yourself what you're getting into. It's very important that you study the market really well, that you understand what the current market is like, what motivates changes in the market, and to understand what you need to have, the basic skill sets that you need to have in order to succeed as a game developer. Now, the topics that we're going to cover during this webinar are 4 topics: the video game industry itself, the game development process, as well as the game development collaboration, how you're going to collaborate with other people, with a team, or with perhaps you're a developer, you're collaborating with artists, or the other way around. And finally, how you can get started today, how you can mark this day as the day that you start your career in game development. Let's start with the video game industry. Now, I think a lot of you here are actually gamers. Usually people who are interested in game development come from a gaming background. They've enjoyed a lot of titles. So let me ask you guys real quick. How many of you here are actually gamers or do enjoy playing video games in your free time? Okay, we have one person. All right, we have a lot of gamers around. So yeah, like I'm saying, we have someone that loves FPS games here. Absolutely. So yeah, so what I'm saying is normally people who are interested in game development come from a game development background. We have someone that's been playing Hitman 3 recently here. Amazing. PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds. All right, that's really good. That's really good. So the game development industry is really massive nowadays. We have an industry that's worth almost 200 billion US dollars to date, and is estimated to keep growing. It's been growing ever since its inception, and it has been steadily making new more progress financially. So if we look at this graph right here, this graph describes the global game market in between 2012 and 2021. Obviously, we're still in 2021, so this is an estimation or a prediction. But in most cases, these are stats differ from source to source, but they're really, really helpful in helping us understand where the market is headed or what's going on right now. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people who play Assassin's Creed, Call of Duty Mobile, Warzone, Witcher 3, Rainbow Six Siege. Shout out to all of you guys. We have a lot of gamers in chat. So if we take a look at this graph right here, you can see that the industry has been steadily growing. From 2012, it was just at 70 billion. Now it's approaching nearly 200 billion US dollars. And you can see that there is a trend here. It's basically moving upwards. So it's been growing every year further and further. And as we can see, there's something that's very, very noticeable in this graph as well. I don't know if you guys have noticed or not. We have a lot of people who play PlayerUnknown's Battleground on mobile. I can see here. I think I've seen a few other mobile games. You guys can see that the mobile game industry has been growing rapidly in comparison to PC and console. And there's, of course, reasons for that we're going to get into. But for now, I want you to take note that this actually, it seems like the mobile market is expanding greatly in our time. You can see that also the PC and console have not really been declining, not at all. They're actually growing quite well, but compared to the mobile industry, they're not growing as much as, not as exponentially as mobile is doing right now. In order to understand that, I want you guys to take a look at this next slide that discusses the 2020 global games market. So this is the year-on-year growth. It's also put in segments. So you can see there's a mobile segment, there's tablet games, there's smartphones, and then there's also PC and console. One very important thing that I want you guys to notice in this graph is that browser PC games, I don't know if you can see it right there, it's 3 billion. It's the only one that currently has a negative year-on-year growth rate. So it's actually been declining at negative 13.4% in 2020. Does anyone actually play browser games currently? Any browser game players? Yes, to have one person. Okay, all right. Okay, we have a lot of people actually that are playing browser games. So as you can see, the industry still, of course, there's a lot of browser games out there and a lot of people who play browser games, but we're noticing a trend in which browser games are starting to slightly decline. And of course, the death of Flash didn't help that. There was a lot of Flash games that were played on browser, but then Flash died, and things haven't been doing real well in that market. I really hope that we get to see browser games rise again. I see that we have a lot of people, which is a good sign in chat. You're playing one right now. We have someone that's actually playing a browser game right now. That's amazing. All right, all right. So, and then you can notice that, yeah, the mobiles are basically almost 50% of this chart that you see in front of you right now. We have 48% to mobile, and 40% is going to smartphones, smartphone games. So that's the largest segment on this graph, smartphones. Not even tablets. You can see that tablets are at almost 9%, but smartphones are at 40%, while we also have PC at 23% and console at 28%. Now, what does that tell us? This next slide will help us understand a little bit why mobile is doing so well in our age and time, and how you could possibly capitalize on that if you want to build something for the mobile market. Of course, you don't have to. I personally prefer to build for PC and console, but to each their own. There's a lot of people that are actually doing really well in the mobile market nowadays. Mini clip. We have someone. Yeah. All right. So if you take a look, we have 51% of people that reported that they play game after work or school. I think a lot of us do that actually. That's the ideal time where you basically have had to deal with a long day and you're looking to have some kind of a refresher or to de-stress kind of. Yeah, I can see some people agreeing with me in chat right now. So yeah, we do play when we go home. 51% of people reported that, but we also have 30% of people that play while waiting for appointments, and we have 26% that play during break or at work or at school. And finally, we have 16% that reported that they play while commuting, while in public transport or in transport in general. So what does that tell? What do these three stats tell you? This is the advantage that the mobile has right now, that smartphones have right now over other gaming devices. You can do it anywhere. If you're waiting for an appointment, you're bored, there's no one with you to communicate with, and you want to do something, most of us, what we do is we just pick up our phone and do something, whether it's chat with other people or play games. You could just literally just download a game while you're waiting for an appointment and play it until your turn is there. This is also applicable to when you're at break at work or school, or when you're in public transport. Normally in public transport, you're focused on the destination. You don't go for the ride itself most of the time. You're just focused on getting somewhere. So it makes sense that you do something enjoyable in that time that that is kind of, for most of us, is being wasted. So that's why mobile is really prevalent nowadays. It's the ease of use and access. It's a portability, essentially. Now, the next part that I want to talk about is, why do people play video games? I'm going to start by asking you guys first. Why do you play video games? I want you to write at least one reason that you choose to play video games in your free time. Fun, relaxing, passion, entertainment, and fun. Okay. You're bored, makes sense. Passing time really applies well for the examples that we just described. Removing stress, okay. Chilling mind, okay. Challenging your mind, adrenaline rush. You guys actually nailed the statistics that I'm about to show you. If you take a look here, players, as we can see in this chat right now, we all think that playing video games has a positive impact on our lives. Entertainment, yes, entertainment, fun. So you think that you have our players essentially think that they have positive impact on their life. They've reported, 80% reported that games provide mental stimulation, 79% that they help them relax and relieve stress, and we have 63% who reported that gaming helps them with problem solving. Obviously, in most games, you're dealing Like the plot is essentially a problem and you're trying to solve that problem and you're doing a lot of things in between. You could be doing actions that require a bit of problem solving in order to get to where you want to get in that game or to progress. Right. We also have a lot of people who report that games bring them joy, help them connect with friends and family. And these are two really interesting stats right now. Somewhat it does test my IQ. That's true. That's true. Okay, so we have 30% of players who met a good friend or significant other or even a spouse while playing video games, and 40% who have met people through video games that they think they would have otherwise not met. Now, I'm gonna also ask you guys a really important question right now. How many of you actually made a close friend through gaming? Like, how many of you right now have a close friend? Close friend I would describe as someone that you play a lot of games with. It's not just an acquaintance, someone that you play with regularly. And okay, got a friend from the US environment. We have a lot of people saying yes in PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, and Call of Duty. All my friends are in the game. All right, all right, all right. We're a team of 5. Okay, so you can see where I'm getting at. There's a lot of people. I think you would actually see this. There's a lot of people that you know right now from gaming that you wouldn't have otherwise met if it weren't for the game that you're playing. I think in some cases, some of us even make real life friends if that person is in the same country. Like if you made a friend that's also in India, I think some of us may have actually became more than just online friends with that person, which is really, really good. Fortnite and PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, Asphalt Legends. We have a lot of gamers here. I love it. I love the spirit, guys. I love the spirit very much. All right. So who plays video games? Now, this statistic is actually taken in the United States. The other stats that we discussed were mostly global or worldwide. This one is in the United States. We can see that 70% of all people that are under 18 play video games. 70%, that's 70% of every person in the United States that you see that's under 18 is actually playing a video game. And you have 64% of all adults, that's anyone that's above 18, also happens to be a gamer, which is it's in a way surprising for some people. Some people imagine that no, it's the younger generations that are more interested in gaming. I have a surprising fact for you. Maybe some of you already know it, but the average age of a gamer is 33 years old. And the age range at which most players are at is 12 to 24. That's 16% of all players between 12 years of age and 24 years of age. Right. We also have 59% of those which are male and 41% that are female. Now, there are actually statistics that report that the number of people above 18 that play video games are actually more than 64%. Some people report that it's in the 70% range, which is insane. A fun statistic to know, there's 2.7 billion gamers in the world. We're nearing on 8 billion people right now. So you're basically 1 in each 3 people that you see on the street is most likely a gamer. 1 in each 3 people is a gamer. That's insane. All right. Next, we want to discuss the revenue per country. Now, we have 3 countries that are currently dominant in the market, which are China, the United States, and Japan. They're the top 3 countries at 32 billion, 25 billion, and 14 billion. But this was in 2017, mind you. This was 4 years ago. So these numbers are not updated. It could be higher now, but they will be in the same range. We also have Germany, the UK, South Korea, and so on, that are also having really good game markets. Okay, someone is asking what's India's approximate place. I believe India is at 583 million, which is over 500 million. And I believe it's currently in the 16th place. So if we had 10 more places, India would be at the 16th. And I think the industry is growing. We have a lot of people that are interested in game development. As you can see in this actually chat right now, there's a lot of people in India that are looking to start a career in game development. And the more that we have, the more that the game development industry in India is actually going to flourish and go up. All right. We also have we want to talk about the game development process. So we just talked about the market. We understand the market now. We kind of understand a little bit about gamers or about the people that we're targeting, people who play games. Now we want to discuss the game development process. And in order to understand the process, there's a few things that we need to understand about the value chain of the industry. The very core of a video game, the three basic roles that have to exist in any video game project are programmers, designers, and artists. So programmers are obviously ones that write code. They program everything in the game that can be programmed that should have a desired effect. Usually, that was or in old time actually, that was designed by a designer. So you have game designers who are basically dictating what the game is going to be like. They're very imaginative. They're coming up with ideas on what a game can be like and how it can be enjoyable to play. There's a lot of things that they determine. Programmers follow that. Artists also follow that. And obviously, artists are responsible for everything that is artistic in the game. So if you have 3D models in your game, if you have sprites, which are basically images, if you have sound effects, if you have visual effects, whatever it is, there's a lot of artists that are responsible for everything you see in a video game. All right. Can you tell the exact difference between game designers and game developers? Okay. So game developers, the term can actually be used on anyone that's in a game development team. It's not necessarily a programmer. Someone who's in a game development team can be called a game developer. While a game designer is one of the people in the team, one of the people in your team that's basically responsible for coming up with everything, all the ideas that are going to bring the game to life. So, for example, they decide when, like, I think some of you may have played Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. In that game, you could actually, yeah, we have people that played it. In that game, you can actually die twice before you're dead. So whoever made that decision that you can die once and then you can revive and then you can die again, that was a game designer, right? That was someone who came up with the idea and that ended up being in the design of the game. Okay, so we have publishing. Publishing is very important. We have the funding and the marketing sides that are usually handled by either a publisher or publishing firm or a publishing group within your company. They handle the funding for the project and they handle the marketing campaign that happens. So advertising and everything that has to do with marketing or getting your title around there, out there, social media and so on, that's done in the marketing campaign. A few things that we're going to go through real quick. We have distribution. That could be retail. You could be buying a video game from a store, right? You could physically visit the store. This isn't a large percentage of the revenue, but it does happen. And then you have digital, which is predominant nowadays. You have markets like Steam and Epic Game Store for PC. You have PlayStation Store and Microsoft Store for consoles. You have a lot of things like Google Play and App Store for mobile and so on. So you have distribution, how you're going to get your game out there to the end user, right? Now, let me ask you guys a question. Do you usually go through for those who actually went through the process, would you go buy a game from a retail store, or do you usually do things digitally? Do you use stores that are digital, or do you go in person and buy digitally? Okay, we have a lot of people saying digitally. Online stores, Steam or Epic, a bit of both. Okay. So what you guys can notice right now in chat that we have a lot of people that are saying they do it digitally, which is why I'm telling you that digitally currently is predominant to the traditional retail store method. Both retail, physical copy, always nice. Yep, I can understand that. I can respect that. Okay, okay. Origin, of course, yes, there's Origin as well. Okay, so that's for distribution. For retailers, well, obviously we have retailers, which are essentially the segment of the industry that are responsible for distributing the game to the end users, which are gamers or people who are going to buy them. And we have consumers. Obviously, these are the gamers, the players, the people who are going to play your game. And finally, there's something that's very important: hardware or platform manufacturers. We have, for example, consoles. We have in PCs. There's a lot of different graphics cards that you could buy to run different video games. There's a lot of CPUs. There's a lot of options for you as an end, as a consumer, if you want to play a game. And sometimes these will actually make differences to the developer. Like if I'm developing a game, I need to decide what I'm going to, what my minimum specs, the minimum requirements for a computer or for a mobile are going to be in order to run that game. So these are very important in your decision making when you're creating a game. Right. Next thing we want to discuss is game engines. Now, I can see that some of you already started a conversation in chat. I could see a mention of Unity and Unreal. There's a little bit of a discussion for about C# and C++. Someone is asking if C# or C++ or Java are really necessary for game designers. Okay, so if you're a programmer, if you're a game programmer, whatever it is that you're programming, if you're a sound programmer, gameplay programmer, there's a lot of fields in game development or in programming. C# and C++ happen to be the most useful languages, as well as JavaScript. So C++, C# and JavaScript are basically the most used languages in game development. I can see someone mentioning that C# is being used for Unity. At some point in the past, JavaScript was also actually used for Unity. It was called UnityScript. Java is not really common for games, despite the fact that the most successful game out there was actually made in Java, which is Minecraft. I don't know if you guys know this, but Minecraft was made in Java, and it took a lot of optimization to get it where it is today. It's an amazing game, but it's one of the very few examples we see of successful games in Java. What about Python? Actually, yes, Python is also used for game programming. That's true. That's true. Even TypeScript is used in Unity. And then we have how many days, I'm not sure I understand the question. If you want to rephrase it, how many days taken for a game development? Well, if you're developing a game, it's really situational in what you're doing. There's a lot of time where you're going to have to set a plan for yourself. Really, it depends on the size of your project, how many people are in your project, what are you expecting to deliver by when. It really isn't as simple as I couldn't give you a simple answer. It could take a few months to develop a small game. It could take a year to develop something larger. It really depends on the game. We have someone mentioning blueprints as well for Unreal. That's true. Okay. All right. All right. Next, we have, we wanted to talk about game engines. So basically Unity, you guys just mentioned a few of them in chat, as I said. Let's go to that. You guys mentioned Unity. Obviously, Unity is a very, very powerful game engine that is used by a lot of people in the industry, whether that's they're indie or whether they're actually working in companies. Unity can basically export to any platform that you can expect to export to, which is one of its really strong points. We have Unreal as well, similar in power. Unreal is also quite powerful. We can see that Unreal can also support a very large number of platforms. So if you're looking to develop something for mobile or for PC or whatever it is, Unity and Unreal can both do it, or for console or for web. Those two can do it. Although I'm not entirely sure about Unreal, because I read a while. I don't use Unreal, but I read a while ago that web support was there was something up with web support. So I'm not sure about this one. But we also have CryEngine, which is a really powerful engine that we can see a lot of titles have been built with. We have Phaser, which is essentially a game development framework based on HTML5. It utilizes the power of WebGL. Now, HTML5 and WebGL, I don't know if you guys have heard of the technologies. I'm sure some of you have. They've been a revolution for us game developers in the... oh, someone's asking what I'm using. I'm using Unity mostly, the Unity game engine. And yes, of course, there are companies that do make their own game engines. That's true. That's true. There are companies that, for example, League of Legends. I think some of you for sure know this game. A lot of you actually, not some. It's very popular. They built their own game engine. World War Z, they built their own game engine. They are billions. They built their own game engine. There's a lot of companies out there, especially AAA companies that have built their own game engine. How many games have you developed? I'm not. I don't actually keep count. Not everything I've developed is a video game. I could give you an answer to that after I check my previous work. But I actually work on not just video games, but also simulations, 3D simulations, VR and AR, things that are a bit more not for the direct consumer, the player, but more for corporations, like gamified training solutions and stuff like that. Has any of your games gone famous? Not really. Would you recommend Unity or Unreal for beginners? I think both are equally really good for beginners. Unity seems to have a reputation that it's more for beginners, which is essentially because people claim its UI, its user interface is easier. But I think both are perfectly good if you're looking to start a game development career. What do you basically do, programming or designing? Programming. Okay. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is Constructs, which is also a really good game making software that's been showing really good growth in the past period. Now, Construct can be used to build for web, or it can be used to build for mobile. And the thing about web is nowadays, with the power of WebGL and HTML5 and all that, if you build a game for a I look like a YouTuber because of my setup. Yeah. So basically, they made it really easy to develop a game for browser that runs on a browser, and any device that can run a browser can actually run that game, which is really, really good. It's really powerful. Obviously, there are still limitations, but in many cases, this has been a really, really good push for game development. Right. Before we get any further, guys, I want to talk to you about the Eduonix Game Development E-Degree. Now, I can see a lot of you are actually considering right now to start, and I can tell you, after I've reviewed this E-Degree from Eduonix, that it is a very, very powerful kickstart for your game development career. You're going to learn to build a lot of games that are popular and really known, game clones. And the thing about any form of anything that you're trying to learn, guys, the best way to learn something is to build from scratch. In this degree, you're going to be building games from scratch. You're building everything yourself. And that's something that's going to give you immense experience. You can imagine with just 10 games like these, you would be really, really off and ready to go and hit the market with these clones. So I would really highly recommend that you guys check them out. This is going to include Unity, Phaser, and Construct. So you're going to be learning all three in this E-Degree. All right. As for the game development process itself, so we just described the market. We kind of described or understood what types of people are working in a game development industry. But the thing is, the game development industry is kind of really chaotic. And I'm going to tell you what chaotic here means. There is a lot of people, there is a very large number of people that are working on very completely different things. So you have people that are working on sound and audio and animation, and you have people working on development and programming, whether it's audio or UI or interaction or input. And you have artists of all kinds, whether it's something visual, whether it's auditory, and so on. You have so many people that are working in your game, maybe even voice artists and musicians, and so on. All of these people are expected to coordinate together to build a single product, which is something that's a bit difficult to manage, which is why planning is super, super important for anything, obviously, not just game development. But you have to plan really well what you're going to do, because you have a lot of people that could go in a lot of different directions if you're not communicating with them properly. why by planning, I mean you have to get to know your target audience. So for example, are you building a game that's a bit for kids, that's supposed to attract younger generations, or are you building something that primarily targets adults, like shooter games or things that are not very suited for children, and so on. Understand your target audience, because this will help you make a lot of decisions based on that. There's a lot of decisions that you can make based on that audience that will make your game more successful. Of course, that's from a business perspective, not a game development perspective. Someone is asking what's indie. Indie is short for independent. So if you're an indie developer, an indie game developer, that means that you're working independently, not with a studio or a company, but you're working independently, building something that's sort of sort of underground. It's you don't have the greatest of resources, right? But you're building something. You're working on something. Um, right. What's your budget? This is really important. It's often neglected, and you can't neglect something this important if you're working independently specifically. You must have a budget. You must understand what you're going to be spending on. There's a lot of costs, and we'll get into these costs later on during this presentation. What visual style are you going for? Now, for example, if any of you guys played Valorant, I think someone mentioned Valorant earlier. They've had the really interesting, unique art style. There's a lot of different experiences or games that do experiment with art style a little bit, like Borderlands. If any of you played Borderlands, either 1, 2, or 3, they have a very unique art style. There are things that, like Genshin Impact, that are a bit cartoonish. There are things that are more of a serious note or realistic note, like Call of Duty and Battlefield and so on. So you have to decide your style. Also, you have to really consider the core aspects of your game design. And by that, I mean, you have to really, really, really plan everything that you're planning to build in a game before you even get started. You need to do something that we call, to create something that we call a game design document. It has everything that you plan to create, and it helps everyone be oriented and understand what their goal is from this project. You would be surprised that a lot of people are actually kind of lost in a game development team. Again, we're going to discuss the minimum cost of game development as well. This is going to be part that we discuss in the budget. Can you share this PowerPoint? Feel free to ask the Eduonix. I'm sure they'll be very happy to possibly share the PowerPoint with you, the slide. How to start? We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to how to start. All right. Now, for the process of creating a video game, there's also, after you're done planning, there's the prototyping stage. In the prototyping stage, you're basically building something. So let's say you're creating a shooter, right? You're very welcome, guys. So you're creating a shooter, right? When you're creating that shooter, you don't have to create everything from scratch. You don't have to create the characters and the weapons and the reload animations and the clips and everything. You just want to do what is minimum. Like you could have a cube, a literal cube that looks like your player. That's basically you're treating as your player, and you want to experiment with the core game functionality. So everything that's core in your game, the user experience and the overall game feel. You're trying to get a feeling of your game before putting too much work into it. You want to feel and adjust that as early as possible, and get a sense or a hint of what you're about to achieve. Right. Can we create a game like Assassin's Creed with a studio? Right. It depends on how large your team is. Let's just make it clear that AAA games have a huge number of people that are working on them. While you can create something great, I don't know if you guys heard about Senua's Sacrifice, but that game was actually indie, and it was quite a surprise for everyone. The game was amazing graphics-wise. It had so much work put into it. Yes, what is AAA? So AAA means that it's top-notch in the game development industry. Like any title that you're playing that's made by, let's say, EA or Ubisoft or the major titles, these are AAA games. These are games that have a huge number of people working on them. So many different aspects are being handled by so many different people. That's AAA essentially. So can you create a AAA? I don't think, unless you have a really large team, you should probably lower your expectations a little bit, but that doesn't mean that you can't build something great. You can build amazing, really successful stuff. There are really, really successful stuff that have been built by small teams. Yeah, it was a surprise. It was a surprise for a lot of people that Senua's Sacrifice was indie. That's true. That's true. Someone saying Rockstar Games, of course, of course. Where am I from? I'm from Egypt. Okay. What's the difference between a level designer and an environmental designer? So an environmental designer is someone who's basically working on the environment in general, that's building an entire environment. They're usually really, really skilled with getting the environment to look good. There's also environment artists that work along them. And then you have level designers. Level designers are more focused on things that are of impact to the player. Like, for example, if you have an artificial intelligence in the game, you're setting how it's the waypoints of how it's going to behave. If you have exploding barrels, for example, in your game that can be used strategically, maybe you can use an exploding barrel to damage some of the, let's say, zombies that you're playing against. That's a level designer's job. They basically design the level, design everything that you're going through, the experience that you're going through. Right. Then we have the post-production stage. Assuming you've finished, you have a product, you have a working product, and you've reached the post-production stage. This is where you're basically focused on updating your game and fixing bugs and so on. It's very important. It's a very important stage in your game. You have to show your audience that you're still invested in this title, that you're still trying to make it better and better. Of course, there's also an expensive marketing campaign that is launched at this point. You want a lot of people, as many people as you can, to know about your new game, right? Okay. This is the point where we get into collaboration. This is our third topic. Collaboration is a very vital step of your team. If you're building, if you're working with even a very small team, collaboration can prove to be a very, very disastrous thing if not managed properly. You have to make sure that you have really, really good communication model, in your team, and you're effectively using your time and transferring information to each other. Now, there's no such thing as an ideal workflow, right? It depends on your team. It depends on how large your team is, how they operate, a lot of other factors. So the ideal workflow would be what works best based on your team. So what works best for you and the people that you're working with, whether you're Indian, you're working with your friends, or whether you are planning to perhaps launch a startup, whatever it is, you have to really focus on the workflow that's going to be best for your team. Your goal would be always to identify bottlenecks, identify things that are going to slow you down in your development process, and try to improve based on them. Now, efficient communication will save you a lot of time. You have to choose a system that's based on your team. One of the ideas that you could do, that you could have a hierarchy. So, for example, if you have a bit of a medium-sized team, you could introduce a hierarchy where you have a lead developer that's basically dealing with other developers, and you have a lead artist that's working with other artists. You have a someone on top that's managing development and managing art and so on. And basically, decision makers would communicate with these people, and each person would be responsible for informing or communicating with their subordinates. Is VR related to gaming? Of course, VR is used in gaming. There's a lot of VR titles out there that are primarily focused on gaming. I think the reason you might ask that is that there are a lot of things that are not gaming based, like simulations or training software and so on, that's also in VR, but it's definitely used for gaming. All right. So also have a way to have occasional briefs and meetings. You have to always stay in touch, stay in communication. Even if you're working from home nowadays, this happens a lot, of course, given our circumstances. You have to have occasional briefs or meetings to always keep your team updated and to share progress. Have some way to monitor and easily understand everyone's progress. We're going to get to that. There are certain tools that you could use to monitor your team's progress and understand what's going on in your game. What has been done, what needs to be done, what are you late on, and so on. Okay. Agile development is a really, really important set of principles that you can use to speed up your process. Now, we're not going to talk a lot about it, but I really suggest that you look up this term, like search for it and understand what agile development means, because it can help you organize things greatly, especially if you're planning to work in a team. And I've even seen instances where even a single developer can actually use methodologies, agile methodologies, to improve his or her own workflow. Now, the most important part, I think, is the part you guys are all waiting for. How do you get started today? Okay. One of the very most important things I'm going to tell you right now is don't be afraid to invest in yourself. I see this in a lot of people. A lot of people are actually kind of afraid or hesitated to invest in themselves. Like, for example, I could buy this really amazing asset, or I could go through this great course, but I'm having sort of second thoughts. I'm not sure. Will I actually be using this for something, or would I like kind of not do what I'm expected to do? Like, what if I buy the asset and then don't finish the game, right? There's a lot of doubts that affect people. Do not let these doubts affect you. Always invest in yourself as long as you can, and as long as it's a smart idea, and be sure not to limit what you can have to improve yourself. That's something. Do your research, super, super important, whether you're trying to apply for an existing game or for an existing, studio, or whether you're trying to launch your own or work as an independent developer. It's very, very important that you do your research on the company that you're applying for, or on the market that you're planning to target on, or on what the current state of the market is, what's trending, what's not, and so on. Work hard to build your skill base. This is very important. Now, you can constantly improve as you go. You don't have to be a programming genius to get started in game development. But when you build the fundamentals, when you build the basics properly, you're going to be always able to continuously learn and develop yourself, which is super, super important. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there, or your game out there. So if you're applying, you need to constantly sort of market for yourself. You're your own marketing team. You want people to know that you are a developer, that what you do is development, and that you love the games industry, and that you're ready and willing to work in this market. That is super, super important. If you're building a game, don't be afraid to get that game out there. Share trailers, create things, share posts and articles and blogs. Keep your community interested. Like, you could have a developer blog or something, and share your progress with people. I'm sorry, I missed that question. Someone is asking, what is bottlenecks? So bottlenecks is a sort of, like when you have a bottle, so the bottleneck is the part at the top, which is narrower, and it kind of signifies when you're having a certain team working at a certain pace, and then there's something that's slowing them down, something like a bottleneck that's slowing their progress. For example, we have really good developers that are working on a game, but we only have a few artists, and they're not keeping up with the pace of the developers. So in that example, you have a bottleneck that you need to resolve, either by hiring more artists, or by finding a way to manage and organize things so that they work more efficiently. Right. Constantly find motivation to keep moving forward. This is one of the most important things. Like, a lot of people could have the motivation right now, and you're not, the motivation exists right now, but you're not constantly pushing yourself. The motivation is not constantly there to help you achieve what you're trying to achieve. So it's very important that you focus on keeping yourself motivated. Do something that, do ideas that you love, that you really love, that you're passionate about so much that your motivation is not going to easily run out. Expect and be ready for competition. This is very important. You're not the only person in this market. You're not the only indie developer out there. There's going to be people who are going to create games similar to yours, or there's going to be people that are applying for the same position that you're applying for. So it's important that you expect competition. All right, someone was asking me earlier about costs. I told you this is a part we're going to tackle in the future. So we have the most important things that you have to worry about as an indie developer. Most likely will be, of course, hardware. You're going to need a lot of hardware, a really good hardware, to be able to develop a game. But that's not always the case. If you're developing something simple, if you're developing a mobile game or a 2D game or whatever it is, you're actually going to find yourself able to work with really low specs compared to what the average game developer would have. So it's situational. A laptop would work and a PC would work for the person that's asking. I know people who work independently with laptops. If you have a laptop right now, you can do it. Of course, a PC would be a better option, but if this is your option right now, go for it. It's not impossible. Okay, someone was asking about optimization. Optimization is basically where you're trying to improve everything in your game in relation to performance and to storage and to RAM usage and a lot of other things. You're most likely as an indie developer, you're going to be focused on also some fees for music, advertising, licenses, and legal fees. Music, you really want to focus on music, guys. Music is one of the things that really help the player immersion to exist in your game. So music is very important. Advertising is super important. You want people to know that your game exists and you want them to want to buy it. Licenses, there's a lot of instances, for example, when you're developing for consoles or for mobiles where you're going to be paying license fees or developer fees to be able to publish to a certain platform. So keep that in mind. Legal fees, there are a lot of things that you could be involved in legally when it comes to fees, but you generally want to keep in mind one of the most important things is trademarks. You want to keep your trademarks safe. If you're creating a game, make sure that your game is trademarked to you or it's registered to you. Same with your company name or startup name or whatever you're going to create. You need to always make sure that you're securing these names for future use. Or costs that you couldn't encounter if you're not an indie developer, if you're an indie developer or actually a small studio, would be game assets. You could be looking to buy a lot of game tools or art or audio. There are things that would make your life much easier that you would otherwise waste a lot of time on or are simply not in your field of expertise. For example, if you're a programmer and you can't create 3D models, for example, or you don't have that much experience in 3D, you would be looking to buy 3D assets. Essential development tools and online storage are also super important. Development tools are things that can help your team develop things faster. And online storage, of course, you're working in the game development industry. You have a lot of massive files that you're going to need storage for, whether it's textures, models, whatever it is, you're going to always need the storage. Now, points to remember, guys. Plan wisely. For your game, plan wisely. Even if you're applying for a job, plan really well. Make sure that you do your absolute best to land that job. Do your research. Now, doing your research, like I mentioned, is super important. Understand the market, understand the company that you're applying for. Imagine what it would be like if, for your example, applying for a company and you don't know much about their titles and they ask you, have you played this game? And you don't even know what the game is. So it could be a bit awkward. Make sure to understand the environment that you're applying for. Put yourself out there. I think we mentioned this. Make sure that you're always putting yourself and your game out there. And you're basically constantly marketing for yourself and for your products. Invest in yourself. Don't be afraid to invest in yourself. If you think it's a smart decision and if you think it's going to help you, don't let hesitation stop you from investing in yourself. Know your audience is very important. Understand the audience that you're applying, that you're actually trying to sell a product for, and make decisions based on that audience. Communicate effectively. Super important. Communication is really, really, really important if you want to succeed in a team. Constantly adapt. This is also very, very important. This is a path like any other path. It's not a straight line. You're not just going to decide today, yeah, I want to be a game developer, and you're going to achieve a super cool game in 2 months. That's not the reality of it. You have to constantly adapt because there's going to be a lot of challenges that you need to be prepared for. And for the most part, if you really, really love game development and if you're interested in this field, you're actually going to enjoy these challenges. They're not going to be something negative, but something that constantly motivates you to push forward. And finally, never neglect marketing. This is very important. I'm leaving this here because it happens a lot with people who just started. Never ever neglect marketing. Marketing is super important. You could build the greatest game ever, and no one would actually know that it exists. No one knows that this game exists. They would play, they would love it, but they don't know it exists. So it's very important that you really, really focus on marketing after you have your game ready for release, or even during, not just after. By the way, you could be constantly there are teaser trailers for a reason, announcement trailers. You're keeping people excited, the community excited. Yeah, this game is coming out and I think you guys are going to love it. You're constantly sharing about your product. Right. Now this is a part where we're going to talk more about the game development e-degree by Eduonix. I would appreciate it if Akshay could take over from here.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Raman. So I hope the session is going really good, guys. I can see a lot of interesting and a lot of energetic people in the chat section, so which is good. So when I'm talking about the e-degree, Raman, you can just go through the questions which are there in the chat box because there are many of them. So if you could just help me with the slides.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
what we are here for? Okay. So guys, okay, so what we're talking about the game e-degree. So what are you gonna get over here? So whatever was discussed during the session, whatever Raman told us, so we have the best of global instructors over here and certificate. A lot of people were asking about the certificate. So guys, if you want a proper black and white certificate, a proof of game development, so maybe this e-degree is there for you. If you can go on the next slide. So what are you going to learn from this e-degree is you're going to learn programming, development, game designing, game physics. There are a lot of things. And guys, the final part of the session is the offer that I was talking about. So, so the game e-degree, whatever was taught, whatever has been discussed so far. So I have this flat price for you all, and this offer is something that you're going to love it. So it is there on the next slide. So if we can have the next slide, Raman.
Mhm.
After this, yeah, so this is the spot offer that we have for you guys, and it is only for people who are attending the session because you guys have registered on the website, so we know. And this is the price that we're giving. Everything that we've discussed so far during the session, everything that has been discussed, you're getting at flat $39, and this is going to be valid only for 24 hours today. I am also going to put the offer link. So what you can do is you can go on to the link, you can click on the link, register yourselves and make the payment. And if you're doing it now, you can just let us know on the chat section. That is also fine. So this is something which is really exciting is what I feel, because you guys are very much interested into gaming and you guys seem very much interested into game development as well. Plus using and getting it at $39 is something that I don't think any one of you should be leaving. If you want to think about it, you can just buy and think about it later, because at $39 is very difficult to get. Plus the offer is going to be valid only for 24 hours. So think about it, you have the offer. And what we're going to do is we're also going to send out an email to you guys which will have the offer link as well, so that you do not miss out on the offer link, and so that you can use the offer link for registering of the session. In the meantime, if you guys are doing it, if you guys are going to register, just put it in the chat section, and in the meantime Raman can take a few questions.
Yes, there are a few questions that I would like to answer in chat right now. I've been keeping track of them. So we have someone asking, do legal fees apply to every platform like mobile or so? Yes, absolutely. In order to publish for Android or iOS, you're actually going to be looking to pay a fee. In case of Android, I'm pretty sure it's a one-time payment, while for iOS, it's a bit more complicated. There would be a yearly payment that you'll be making. As an indie game developer, how do you get licenses? It would be as simple as as just buying them. You're basically just buying the right to publish to this platform, and that's about it. There is no legal challenge to it. There's no fuss. You're just going to buy the license and that's it. Okay, we have someone that asked me privately, so you can buy models and use them in game development instead of making them and taking time. Yes, absolutely. If I am a programmer and working on a game independently, even if I have an artist, but that artist has a lot of things that they have to worry about, you could always buy models and use them. And yes, you would have the commercial right. Of course, it depends on where you're buying them from, but you would most of the time have the commercial right to use them in whatever way you want. Um, okay, I'm taking a look at the rest of the questions. Which colleges in India provide a degree programming? I'm honestly not sure. You might want to ask someone in chat. What kind of degree should I be aiming for to go for if I'm aiming to be a game designer? There are game design degrees. There are things that are really, really useful for you if you want to be a game designer, and you would be surprised. There's a lot of concepts to it and a lot of things that you have to follow in order to be a good game designer. You might want to inquire if there is availability for a game designer degrees right now. How can I land in the gaming industry as a 3D artist? What is a process? So for as a 3D artist, you would have to really, really focus on your portfolio. This is your number one thing. So you have a list of things that you've created before, and you're showing them off to whoever is going to, whatever job that you're going to be applying for, the recruiters or the interviewers that you will be with. It's absolutely crucial as an artist that you have something like this. You might want to ask, what if I haven't worked on games before? Where you can always work on your own projects of passion. It doesn't have to be a video game. You can create things that are super artistic, really good looking, that would get people interested into hiring you. Thank you so much. What else is there? Do legal fees apply to every platform like mobile or so? Yes, I've also answered that question. It applies to consoles and mobiles and some other platforms. What do AAA companies expect from a game developer? I mean, what skills or knowledge are required? Well, you would be surprised because AAA companies, they have a very large number of people on their team. So they're looking for you to be really specialized in something. For example, you won't just find them hiring a game programmer. Of course, they could be hiring a game programmer, but most of the time you're going to say that they want a gameplay programmer or an input programmer or a UI developer or a sound programmer or AI, artificial intelligence programmer. So they're really focused on you being really good at something specific. If you're looking to hire a AAA company, you probably want to pick the thing that you love most in the game development process and focus on that. Of course, you want to be good with other things, but you want to be really good with one thing that you're expecting to work at a AAA company using later on, a main skill, essentially. Okay, do you need to learn languages before joining the course? The course is going to be from scratch. So even if you have not had experience before, you would be doing really well in this course, and we'll make sure that you understand everything and how to build everything from scratch. Can you make game mods? I mean, you can always make game mods, of course. It depends on the game and how easily it is or how supported it is to make a mod for it. How to access this recording. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, actually, but this is going to be available on YouTube later on, so you can access it. Which one to go for, programming side or art side, if I like both? You could actually, this is a very interesting question because there is a title, something called a tech artist or a technical artist. That's sort of a programmer and an artist at the same time. If you love both, you could be looking at the tech art career, which basically would be you really knowing what you're doing with art and the artistic side of things, but also able to develop tools and things that will be really helpful for your team. So this might be something that you're interested in. Do I prefer Unity over Unreal? Any specific reason? I think they're both equally powerful and I love them both. I haven't had that much experience with Unreal. Most of my experiences with Unity, but I don't really have a preference. I think both will get the job done, and both are really, really good engines. Okay, let's see. I'm taking a look at the rest of the questions. I'll try to answer as many as I can. Okay, there are some questions that are repetitive. I believe I answered those for you guys. Are you self-taught or have you done some degree? So game development wise, I'm 100% self-taught, but programming wise, I've actually, yes, I'm a computer science graduate, so I did study programming, but I would attribute most of what I can do today to being self-taught. And this is a very, very important skill that you must have if you want to succeed in any field in general. You must be really good at constantly improving yourself over time. Can you make mods for games, and is it legal? You can make mods. I've seen a debate before about the legality, to be honest. I'm no legal expert, so I don't think I can give you much advice on that, but you might want to look it up online. I think it caused problems sometimes, but I'm not sure what the legal conditions were in that case. Okay, I'm seeing we have a lot of messages. Sir, with the program side or to be like both? Okay, I already answered that one. Will this course be from scratch? Yes, that's the whole point in the course. We want you to build things from scratch. Everything that you're going to build will be starting from the very bottom and building your way up. And it would actually give you a huge head start. That's why I'm telling you it'll actually give you a really, really good head start in game development if you're really, really interested and love that field. How can we as a freelancer approach a company to use our 3D assets? You can always post things to stores. That's the most efficient way, in my opinion. So there's like the Unity asset store, there's the Epic Games asset store. There are asset stores within, I believe Phaser also has an asset store. There are a lot of game development asset store out there that you probably want to put your 3D assets in. It's going to take a bit of work, though, legally. I know that you have to go through some steps to be able to do it, but you can. And a lot of people who are building games will be able to see your assets and buy them. Of course, you could always use websites like Upwork and so on that also seek to hire seek to have 3D assets, but they're not going to be as good as working in an asset store, in my opinion, because Upwork is a little bit generalized. It's not just focused on game development. Okay. What games are you going to introduce in this course? So if I go back to the slide over here, you can see that there are a few examples like Angry Birds, Pokemon Go, Zelda, Portal, and a few other things from scratch. You could always visit the Eduonix website if you want to learn more about the options that you have. All right, let me just get you that back up for you. Okay, here we go. Can you tell us about some of the projects you've worked on? So I've worked on 2 driving simulations that were actually really, really gamified. I've worked on a video game that was a VR video game that was targeted at for training to employees at a certain company. I've worked on a sort of a horror video game, but that actually got halted. I'm still hoping to get back onto that soon. It was a bit of a horror slash thriller type of game. I'm also currently working on a simulation, apocalyptic zombie simulation game where you're actually getting to manage a group of survivors and taking them across a city and so on. There are also a lot of other projects that were like there was a crane, a game where you'd actually drive a crane and move around and like move crates from one spot to another, and you're basically in a sort of a harbor or port. I've worked on a mobile game that has also not been published yet. It was an infinite runner where you could run. You're basically running around, attacking certain obstacles on the way in a certain pattern. Yeah, there's a few other things that these are things I could tell you right now off the top of my mind, but there are a few other things that are mostly focused on more simulation or training or VR and AR than video games. Can you provide the session YouTube link, please? I believe the session link will be provided by Akshay.
Yes, Raman. Yes, guys. So I think I did not tell this to you guys before. So the session has been recorded. It is getting recorded, and the PPT, all the session recording and the PPT is going to be uploaded on your Eduonix dashboard in next 24 hours. You can go and check the dashboard, and you'll find it over there. You can go through your own pace through this recording again. You can go through the PPT again if you want to understand anything else. And in the meantime, so I hope you guys have already checked the offer link. If not, just please do check it. We'll also be sending it in the mailer. I'm also, guys, now sharing the feedback form link. So please, okay, give me 1 second. I sent across in the wrong chat. So I am again sending out the feedback form link, guys. So please fill it up. This is primarily for understanding how good the session was and what kind of courses you want us to come with similar sessions and similar webinars and similar offers with. So yeah, so someone has just asked me if we can pay through EMI. So guys, the price is just $39. So I don't think there is any requirement of EMI. Plus, it is very difficult for us to go through EMI via EMI for prices like $39. So yeah, so it is going to be difficult for us to do an EMI. So that's not going to be possible. Other than that, if you guys have any other queries regarding the session, so sessions, so it's going to be a self-paced session. If you're a starter, if you're a beginner, you can just start. Yes, you can pay in INR. If it depends upon your region. So if you're in India, you'll have to pay in INR. If you're out of the country, if you're out of India, so you'll have to pay in dollars. It's going to be like that. This okay. So talk more about the game e-degree by Eduonix is it's going to be self-paced. If you're a beginner, you're going to learn how to make or how to develop games from scratch, as Raman told you, and everything which Raman has described or discussed today is going to be covered during this session. And anything else, if you guys have, you can write to us at support@eduonix.com, because I understand we'll have to disperse now. We have to, respect the time that we have promised you all. So yeah, you guys can write to us at any point of time. We're going to be sending you the email also for this session, for the session offer and for the feedback link. So I would really appreciate if you can, fill up the sessions. And thank you so much for joining us on a Saturday. And thank you so much. Thank you so much, Raman, for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Yes, the recording is going to be free, guys. As we've already told you, the session was free for you, and you guys can check your Eduonix dashboard in 24 to 48 hours, and it's going to be there up. And if you do not see it, you can always reach out to us at support@Eduonix, or you can take the chat support on the website. So do check out Eduonix website and the offer and the game e-degree. So we're going to disperse now. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. This has been great.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Thank you.